My name is Tammy Uzelac Hall. I am from St. Louis, Missouri and Sandy, Utah. The book, Far Above Rubies, The Power and Promise of a Covenant-Keeping Woman, takes Proverbs chapter 31, verses 10 through 31, which is called the proverb of a virtuous woman. And it's always been addressed to women, and it is a long, long, long laundry list of things to do when you say, I do. Because the first thing you have to have is a husband. So I then was studying that proverb after I finally got married at age 35, and I remember reading it thinking, yeah, I don't want to be virtuous because it's overwhelming. There is so much stuff required of a woman. You have to cook, clean, sew your own clothes. Oh, make the material you're going to use to sew your own clothes. When in reality, the husband is Christ. And he's always been Christ throughout the whole Old Testament. He is always called the bridegroom or the husband. And so really the whole proverb now is about a covenant-keeping woman's relationship with the Savior. And all of the things that it lists for her to do aren't things that we have to start doing. They're things that you already are doing because you're a covenant-keeping daughter of God. The idea to write the book Far Above Rubies came from me being a full-time seminary and institute teacher. Whenever I would get to Proverbs 31, I would just make up what the verses meant because no one in the history of the LDS Church has ever written about this proverb. There's nothing for us to go on, and every seminary and institute manual for this specific lesson says qualities to look for in a future spouse or wife. And I remember getting to this lesson thinking, all right, here we go. I'm not virtuous yet because I'm not married. So then I finally did get married. And I was much older, and I decided I'm going to read the proverb and see what I have to do now to be virtuous. And this most silly verse of all of them is verse 21 that says you can't be afraid of the snow if you want to be virtuous. And I was like, does God really care if you're afraid of the snow? So because I had been studying Hebrew, I decided to read it in Hebrew. And it just blew my mind because it really isn't about things that women need to start doing better. We're already doing it. Learning Hebrew really helped me write this book because I was able to read each verse and look into the symbolism and the wording and the meaning behind words in Hebrew. So for instance, verse 21 says, "She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet." Some scholars who are not LDS have interpreted this verse to mean literally, she's not afraid of the snow and her family's dressed really well. That's super overwhelming for any mom. And so I looked deeper into the meaning of these words, and the word snow in a lot of symbolism means death. So she's not afraid of physical death or spiritual death because it connects with the next part of the verse which says all of her household is clothed in scarlet. And scarlet in the scriptures is a symbol of the Savior's atonement. And so now it says she's not afraid of death, physical or spiritual, because she has clothed her whole household in a knowledge of the atonement of Jesus Christ. Now that makes more sense. That's something that God cares about. The way that this book is set up is that each verse is broken up into, I tell you what the verse means in Hebrew, and then I give you an everyday application of what it looks like in everyday life, so that you're not overwhelmed with, wait, what does this mean? So it's really fun. So every chapter is a verse, and then I just tell you, here's what it means in Hebrew, and here's what it looks like. One of the things that I hope readers will take away from their experience by reading this book is that they're enough. That they are doing good enough, that they're a good enough daughter of God, that there's a whole verse in there that literally does teach us we're enough. We've been saying that. It's a huge buzzword of our time that women are enough. And I love that the proverb of a virtuous woman literally teaches that in verse 11. We're enough. We're smart enough, kind enough, pretty enough, skinny enough. We're a good enough mom, a good enough daughter of God, a good enough friend. Everything that we feel we're lacking enough of, this book will make you feel like, oh, I'm doing it. I am awesome. That was the goal. I just wanted women to come away feeling like they're enough. And the women in my life have done that with their stories. And so, if anything, just skip to the personal stories at the very end of each chapter. It's totally worth the read.